Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Time We Discuss studio. I have Bill Zeiders here today, and it's time to discuss a career in social media marketing. Bill, thank you for joining me on Time We Discuss.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. I think this is a great project you're working on here, so I'm happy to be a part of it.
Awesome, awesome. Like that. So happy you're here. It's going to be awesome hearing your perspective regarding marketing. Now, Bill, admittedly, when I think of marketing, the very first thing that comes to mind is Mad Men. Uh, I think a large agency. I think boardroom pitches. I think creative iterations. I think maybe creative differences. Maybe some scotch and cigars. Hanging out in the mid 1900s. That's the first thing I think of. It probably shouldn't be, but it is. the The second thing I think of is more realistic. I think of maybe a larger, small company with a marketing department where maybe you're purchasing advertising space for streaming media, maybe for print, maybe TV. You might be responsible for email or social media campaigns. You might be reviewing analytics. As a director of marketing and social media, what's your typical day like? Are you in the weeds? Do you have a team that works with you? What's your typical day like? Tell us
Uh-huh.
about it.
Well, it's a little bit different than what you're saying, and the the definition you provided is definitely one side of marketing. What I'm doing generally is, and I've been working for nonprofits essentially. So our marketing kind of boils down to presenting the organization in a good light to whatever audience that organization wants to reach, whether it's members, potential members, um, the general public, uh, that kind of thing. So we're sort of marketing ourselves, or our causes or things like that. So a general day, what I'm doing is I'm monitoring our social media accounts. I'm deciding what do we want to post, what's our strategy in general. Um, I might be running some online ads. But currently, what I'm working on, as an example, is like we have a job page. The organization I work for now, we represent all of the radio and TV stations that are members in Pennsylvania. And so one of the services we provide for them is they can post their jobs on our web page. And so what I've been working on is getting more eyeballs on that job page so that more people who are looking for jobs in broadcasting will look at these postings by the stations around the state, and they'll get hopefully a larger base to draw from for applicants. So I'm doing that by you know putting out some Facebook ads and some YouTube ads and things like that, and trying to decide where the best platforms are to put those ads. And we might be working with another company, to maybe look into how we can expand that initiative. So yeah, our team right now that I work with is a very small team. In terms of the marketing department, it's basically just me. But we do have some outside companies that we work with for creative or some other larger writing projects, things like that.
Okay. Now, when it comes to social media, one thing that I've come across, I don't have any direct experience with this thing that I'm going to ask you. Just kind of like what I heard. Do you find that you are posting different things on different media platforms based on different demographics you're trying to reach, or is that a non-issue for you based on your industry?
Anytime I think that you're posting anywhere, you want to decide, who is this for, and what is the audience like on this particular platform. So I think in general, you might be reaching a different audience. Say you're posting on Facebook versus if you're posting on Instagram, or if you're posting on Bluesky or whatever. So that's something you're always thinking about, is who is the audience, who is my audience for this specific post. What's the purpose of this post? What do I want the result of this post to be? And then you decide also, like, should I even post this content on Facebook? Maybe Facebook isn't the right medium for this, or maybe it's a very non-visual um, thing, or there's a lot of links involved, then maybe Instagram, is out. It's you're always kind of thinking about the strengths and weaknesses of the platform and what your ultimate goal is, and always what your audience of the post is.
Okay, okay. When it comes to social media experience, so we've seen different platforms come and go. You had it, if you want to throw Friendster in there, you had MySpace, and it was Facebook, and they just kind of kept on going up and up and up.
Yeah.
Um, how how has your experience working with different platforms in the past kind of built upon itself to do what you do now?
Yeah, it's always evolving. It's always changing. So, I mean, when I went to school, there was no social media. I came out into the workplace, and like uh, I just started dabbling with these platforms, and that kind of led me into my first real job that was working with social media. It was just the fact that I was using them on a personal basis, and this was quite a few years ago now, when it was still a bit of a wild west. I think social media has never really been not a wild west, to be honest. But uh, it's it's constantly changing. Facebook is much different than it was 10 years ago. I mean, Twitter is completely different now. It's not even called Twitter anymore. Um, so it's a constantly evolving, constantly changing thing. So you have to not only be on top of it, and constantly educating yourself about what's going on and what platforms, but also then taking that and deciding, okay, a new platform is here. Is this a platform we need to be on? Is this a platform the organization needs a presence on at all? And if so, what does that presence look like? What's our goal and purpose to be on this platform? Um, so you're constantly sort of weighing these decisions, and the other thing that comes into play too is, do I have the time and resources to post to one or two more social media platforms? Is this a platform I just don't have time for, and it maybe isn't a priority? So yeah, you're constantly experimenting, learning, and adapting as these platforms change, and as traffic to the platforms or from the platforms is changing. It's definitely not a static thing, and I would argue it's in more, I don't want to use the word upheaval, but it's more of a transition period now than it's been in quite some time.
Now, so I want to stay on that with the different platforms you mentioned. So specifically, I'm thinking of Bluesky, which you mentioned, and I'm thinking Threads, which I believe is relatively new.
Yeah.
When both of those launched, did you jump to at least secure your username on that so no one else could grab that, and then decide after the fact, like this platform is for me or it's not for me? What was that process like for any of those newer platforms for you?
Yeah, with Blue Sky being kind of locked down at the beginning, you were only allowed to get in if you had a invite code. So I didn't worry about it too much there. I figured I'd get into it, when I needed to. I was able to get on personally, and kind of check it out. And Threads, I got on, like you said, because I already had an Instagram account, and I'm talking our company account. It just sort of naturally flowed. Like, well, we're basically already on here. Just the way that rolled out. So that wasn't an issue. I know that is a viable strategy, just to get your name in there, and then you can decide later if it's something you want to pursue. But it kind of depends. And like with Blue Sky, um, Blue, Blue Sky, at least in terms of our organization, I don't know yet that it's something we need to pursue. Um, but that's an ongoing discussion, and um, but it'd be different for every organization, as as trends change and things change. So
That makes sense. Now, going back, you said you talked about ad space for YouTube, and I think you said also buying ad space for websites. I believe you said that as well. Um,
Uh,
how how much has that impacted you with people using ad blockers and that sort of thing? I know there was a big thing with YouTube over the past, I don't know, month or two about people using ad blockers to block the ads on YouTube, and then it was kind of like a cat and mouse kind of thing.
mm.
What's that like for you when it comes to buying advertising from your perspective?
Honestly, I don't really have a good answer for that.
Nothing wrong with
I
that.
I haven't really noticed any issues on our end on that. So
Hey, that's good. Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. I mean, we went from like, not zero, but very low traffic on this page we were trying to get traffic to, a pretty decent amount, just with these kind of what I'll consider like minimal ad buys.
Okay.
And that was across, you know, I think it was three platforms in particular. It was sort of Facebook slash Instagram, um, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Um, and I think the majority of it was coming is kind of coming from the Facebook, Instagram realm. But basically going from nothing to anything was kind of a win on, on that side.
Now, how about the other popular streaming platforms like your Spotify or your Hulu or anything like that? Are you guys doing any kind of advertising with that as well or no?
No, that's not something we've explored yet.
Okay.
And we're kind of talking with some outside companies about other strategies we could look into. Um, a lot of that's budget based too, like how much money do you have to spend and where do you want to be. With this particular project, we're looking at job seekers, and how to target them best. So, finding them different parts of the web, and trying to find, specific types of job seekers. There's all kinds of different places you can look, and you just have to know who you're looking for and where you want to try and find them, and then consider that with a budget.
Okay. Uh, Talking about the job seekers and getting them to your website, because I think you said you have like the jobs listed on your site. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we provide for our members as a member service is a job page essentially, so they can post their jobs there. And one of the things that our board was kind of talking about was like, well, how do we, some of them are kind of looking for new hires all the time. Broadcast is an industry that's constantly in flux. People are like a lot of industries, people are, moving and turnover and that kind of thing. So, there were a few of them that were a little concerned, like we really are, trying to find more people to get into broadcasting. Um, and so the idea that we kind of came up with was like, well, we have this job page. Why don't we try to advertise to people looking for jobs, um, and get them to come to the page where you're actually posting, and they're posting other places too, Indeed and whatever. But um, that it's kind of a win-win. It gets eyeballs on the organization, and it gets eyeballs on these broadcasting jobs.
Okay. Now, for getting traffic to the site, do you have to do any kind of search engine optimization? Does that fall under or your responsibility? Is that someone else? Is that not really a concern because of the way in which you're marketing? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's always something you're considering. Anything I post on the website, I try to enhance any kind of search uh, terms that might be useful. There are tools built into our back end to kind of help you with that, and have you thinking about that. That's always something you're looking for. But another sort of wild west, the way search is changing. It's like that's the thing with this kind of industry. It just seems to be like it's constantly in flux, and so you're always learning new things, trying new things, reading, and trying to stay on top of it, or ahead of the curve a little bit, or at least trying to stay with the curve as it changes. The way we search, the way we use social media, it's all changing. um, so it's you just can't be complacent. You have to just constantly be willing to try something else, or learn about what the latest thing is.
So I think you'll probably agree with this, that if you're a person that doesn't necessarily like a constant state of flux, if you're not the kind of person that enjoys a lot of change, this particular career could be a little bit of a challenge for you because of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I would say this career, if you get bored of the same thing, this might be for you, because you want to be. I think it would be best people who like to learn new things, who like to try new things, and are up for these sort of challenges where you're adapting, you're coming up with new strategies, coming up with new ideas, being okay with trying new things, in what we're talking about here in these terms. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the type of person that would thrive in this kind of job. Yeah.
Going back, let's talk about your past. Let's dive deep into your past.
Okay.
Education, how has that enabled you to get to where you are now? Has that had a huge impact? If someone was just debating on getting into this industry, what would be a good educational path for them? Or do they not even need any like real education? Can they just get in with social media experience? What does that actually look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think, for me, I graduated with a communications degree, essentially, and I think one of the strengths I have that I bring to it is, a good sense of writing, editing, um, English, grasp of the English language, because when you're putting out a message to hopefully a lot of people, um, you need to be sure that you know what you're saying, and that it's not going to be misinterpreted, that you're getting your ideas and your message across clearly. Um, so I think that's the biggest thing. I just have a bachelor's degree, in communications, and I read a lot. I do write some, editing. All those skills are, I think, very key. I think a marketing degree could be, very beneficial as well, but not necessary. I don't have one. Um, but and I know, like, nowadays there are definitely, digital media type classes, those type of things, which I think would be, you know, beneficial as well, or could be. Um, but yeah, I think having that solid core of writing and editing, um, is the key one, and that's what's, I think, gotten me, through my various careers. I started at a newspaper, actually, doing, um, similar stuff to what I'm doing now, and on the digital side. Having that core of English language communication skills is really what, got me through that job into my next job, which was at another, not nonprofit, doing, digital media and stuff like that for them. A lot of writing, a lot of, considering wording and messaging, and editing. So
It's interesting. So this Sunday, actually, the video that drops is this woman, Laura Nals, I got a chance to speak with, who also has a communications degree and also does a lot of writing I believe it's internally. I'll have to watch the video again. So it's just interesting that your experiences within what you do are actually very similar to what she was saying, as far as, having to be able to communicate well, being able to edit and write well and speak well and all those things. So it's
Yeah.
kind of neat, these two different careers, although have a very similar foundation. You need to have the same skill set for us. That's really neat to hear. Um, if someone's looking to transition into this career,
Mhm.
they want to do something completely different with their life. They decide social media is for them. They enjoy hitting up, Nextdoor and X and all that stuff. What do they need to do to transition into this career? Do they need to do anything specific? Do they just need to show a portfolio? What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think if someone's trying to get into a sort of digital media or marketing type career, like I just said before, I think having a very solid skill set of communication, um, whatever that looks like. Writing is great to have, even if you write your own blog, you know, something like that, or editing experience is good. But having that really solid core of communication skills, I think, is key. That's kind of the big one. Now, the other thing, if you're looking to get into any kind of like, you know, digital media stuff, is you do have, I think, get your hands dirty a little bit in some of these platforms, know, you know, how to post on Facebook, or, what do these platforms look like? How do they work? How do I best leverage, and that can just be, you getting in, starting your own Facebook page about, a hobby you have, and just creating posts so you have something to show that, yes, I'm using these platforms, I'm familiar with them, um, and I have a little bit of experience of, I know where all the buttons are, that kind of thing.
Proof that you know how to use them.
Yes. A
All
funny
right.
story, when I got my first job in this career at the newspaper, um, you know, I I had been working other jobs, not in this space, but I had a blog, I had a Facebook page, um, and I went into that interview and kind of, now this is a good, you know 12, 15 years ago now, but I went into that interview and kind of said, well, yeah, I run my own, and they were just shocked at the time. They were like, "You run your own blog? Like, you post and everything?" I said, "Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a blogger account. It was nothing special, but just having that like extra experience of actually like using some of these platforms, and the other thing I'll say is be willing to learn how to use technologies. Like, that's been one of the big things that has really helped my career, is just that, like, if someone says, "Hey, we have a new CMS um, system, we don't know how to use it." If you're the person who says, "Okay, I'll spend a day reading the manuals, like going through the tutorials," and then you can show someone, "Yeah, this is how you post, this is how you edit, this is how you do this." Um, or at least being the person who says, "I don't know how to do that, but I'll find out," and taking the time to go like look up a YouTube tutorial, whatever it is, and being the person who's willing to take the time to actually learn the ins and outs of some of these platforms, that can take you pretty far, honestly. I don't have any formal training in that. It's just sort of, I'm willing to push the buttons and, uh, ask questions and find out how these things work, and you sort of make yourself an expert on something that maybe no one else in the organization has time to do, and then you can make yourself a resource. um,
That's awesome. Again, going back to Lauren Alves, she said a very similar thing in her organization, that raising your hand and saying like, sure, I can take this on, I can try to figure it out.
sure.
So it's neat to hear that it isn't uh, single data point. This could be happening other places too, that
Yeah,
it makes sense to really just kind of jump in and try to make yourself known and try to resolve problems.
right. Yes.
So
If you could solve problems, if, a lot of employers will appreciate someone who can solve problems and as opposed to causing problems.
solving problems, good thing. Creating problems, not so much.
Right.
Bill, I have two final questions for you. The first was a bit of a fun question. I
Yeah.
usually like to throw something at the person I'm speaking with, has absolutely nothing to do with their career.
Mhm.
Try to get you, squirm a little bit if I can try. So the first question I have for you, I want you to think of the different things that you've purchased. It might be a large investment like a car, or a smaller investment like a bargain pizza. Something that you purchased that you were super excited about, but
Mhm.
after purchasing it, you had almost instant buyer's remorse. What would that thing be?
Ooh, wow. Okay. I know there's something here, but it's not coming to mind. That's tough because I do a lot of research before I buy things, and then I put things off as long as I can.
I am the same way. I am the same way. I got many years ago. Uh, So when I was a college intern, I interned with Clear Channel, a station in Philly, on the Clear Channel network. And the guy I was working with had one of these motorized mixers, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. Like the faders would go up and down, like automatic. It would save, like you would open that application, it would save the state of the faders. You would go into another application, or you would open a new project, and the faders would all fly on at the in an instant. Really
Uh-huh.
cool. And I thought about buying one for years and years and years, ever since I saw this. And I ended up buying one, like a small, like an 8 channel, motorized mixer for, I don't even know what it cost, but it was within my budget.
Yeah.
Super excited, and it arrived, and I used it like twice, and I was like, I don't like this. I was so disappointed because I thought of something I really wanted, and I knew I wanted it for such a long time. So clearly, it was like I really want it, but when it came time to use it, nah.
Yeah. That's that could be very disappointing. I just can't think of anything that I mean, every time I go to like McDonald's, I'm sorry I go there, but
I love it. I love it. All right, Bill, final question for you. A
yeah.
lot of times when I'm talking with someone too, I also like to give them like a minute or two to talk about something which they believe in. It could be a cause, a personal project, the company they work for, something like that. So if there's something that you would like to share, the floor is yours for the next minute or two. What's something that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I'd like to just drop two things. One real quick, support your local library. So you got a library, they need your help. Go there, get a card, it's free. Check out some books. That's all they need. Just and they got a lot of information in there. So just want to drop that quick. And then the organization I've been spending a lot of time with recently is actually Trout Unlimited. Um, and so, what they are primarily doing is trying to help watersheds, help and keep healthy watersheds, for the purpose of preserving trout populations, which are cold water species. But there's a lot across the whole country. There are all kinds of projects going on. Um, Dam removals is one. Our local chapter, we have a what's called a diversion well. To help remediate some acid mine runoff from some old coal mines from the 1800s, and help level out the pH in some of these small creeks so that the native population of fish can have a better chance of surviving. And having clean water is good for everyone. And having healthy fish populations means you have clean water. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. So that's the organization I've been helping out with a lot here locally, and there's chapters all over the country. So
Awesome, awesome, good stuff. I like that. Like fresh water, fresh clean water is good for everyone.
that's
And
right.
And yeah, when it comes to libraries too, a lot of times you can even get a digital book sometimes if you have a tablet, you can get them
That's
on
right.
your tablet as well. If a dinosaur like us, you can even get DVDs or CDs there too. Lots of opportunities at the local library. That's great.
That's right. Yep.
All right. Bill, thanks so much for joining me today on Time We Discuss. It was great speaking with you about your work as a social media marketer.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for popping by the studio. My name is Dan, and this is Time We Discuss. If there's another profession you'd like me to cover, make sure you leave a comment, and I'll find that person for you. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe. That'll do it. See you next time on Time We Discuss.